Hello. Welcome to Discussing Fitchburg Now. I'm your host, Sam Squalia. Our show here is on, it's a discussion on child abuse and sexual assault. It's called Break Through the Silence. We have Kanisha Coy here.
Hi. Hi, Sam.
From the My Care Initiative.
Yes.
And this Breakthrough Silence, this has been your kind of a mainstay event from your My Care Initiative.
It has. First, I'd like to say thank you for having us all on your show. For those who don't know, April is National Child Abuse Awareness and Prevention Month. It also is Sexual Assault Prevention Month. So you having us here, a lot of people don't like to talk about this. Understandably so, but not talking about it is not making the issue go away.
Right. So being able to have a conversation on child abuse and sexual assault. You know, people at home, you'll be able to watch and hopefully, know that other people have experienced these things as well.
Definitely. To a survivor, that's critically important to have access to be able to speak about their abuse and really have people just listen to them say that I've been abused and not judge them, not condemn them, but have that space of listening to a survivor and just being there for them. It's very, very important.
Because the statistics are harrowing.
They are.
Right? It's 1 in 4 girls.
Yep, and 1 in 5. And really, I like to say that it has like an asterisk by that number because we don't know. There's so many cases that have been unreported. So, yes, this is almost, if not epidemic levels, it's disturbing.
Yes, so
it's
many
too many
people.
It's safe to say it's too many.
It is.
And it's the kind of thing that affects your whole life.
It does. It really can.
Yeah. So we have our panel here on the first segment is we are going to talk about experiences. We have Dennis Randall, who wrote a book called Becoming a Man in the Shadowlands.
Yes.
Yeah. And we have Barbara, who's going to talk about her life and her story. And Jen, who is a performance artist on this.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. All right.
Yeah.
All right, Kanisha, do you want to start us off?
I thought we already started. So I can start by our event that we had this past Saturday. We have 2 people on this panel that were actually there. And first, My Care Initiative is community arts, research, and education. I was on the Cultural Council, Go Fitchburg Cultural Council, for 3 years. And I became chair my last year. And I was just compelled to do more. And the more I kept pushing towards human services and connecting art, the more the committee was like, well, it's a good idea, but that's not necessarily what I want to do. And that's fine. But I started thinking, why am I continuing to make this my business? Why not make my own business? Thus, My Care Initiative was born. Last year, we did Breakthrough Silence for the first time. And it was scary because it's scary talking about abuse that's happened to you, to me.
Yeah, you just recently came out and told your story.
Yes.
Why did you? What triggered you to want to tell your story?
A few things. My brother has been a huge advocate for me. I told people when I was a child that I was going through abuse, and I was labeled a liar. And I tried to tell different people. And
how young were you?
My first abusive situation was when I was 6. The person who re-abused me, molested and raped me, started when I was 8, and it happened until I was in 9th grade, and I just ran away from home. And I told different people. I was accused and then beat. It was said that I was trying to ruin the family. And then I just gave up because I tried everything I possibly could as a kid, and I just didn't know how to get out of that.
Your family couldn't believe that.
Right, because my family...
It was unconscionable.
And some family friends, too, because we were pillars of the society within our family structure. And we went to church. Family made a really good living. We looked the part, upwardly mobile. So it was just like, well, what's going on with this kid? And I was known as the black sheep because, I mean, I'm just different anyway. I'm creative. I will own that. And I didn't find out until maybe 19 or 20 what happened to me was actually called child abuse. And it was the biggest light that went off in me because it actually had a name instead of it just feeling disgusting and icky. And then other terms, molestation, incest, these things started coming out. And I'm like, okay, all right. And then I just was angry all the time, or at least most of the time. So
because this breakthrough silence really came after you wrote about it on your blog, right?
That I didn't expect the response that happened. I just decided I'm going to tell my story. And why I decided that is a male friend told me about his abuse. And we grew up together. I've known him for over 20 years. And we would play at each other's house and hang out. And to know that he was going through that pain and I was going through that pain, it's just devastating. And he felt that he was weak. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to start talking about this because we're not weak. We weren't the people that did anything wrong. And our silence, in a way, is protecting those abusers.
That's right.
And then I just got pissed off. So,
and it's when you share with other people that you feel confident to,
so
be able to tell.
Exactly. And
others.
I wrote about it, and I got a lot of emails and inbox messages. So I decided I'm going forward.
Is your story a similar story, Dennis, to your writing of your book?
No. I was a prisoner of silence for at least 50 years.
50 years?
And I only came public with my abuse last November. Until then, I didn't even acknowledge it to myself. It began when I was in the 7th grade, and I was accosted by myself and a friend were accosted by a bunch of bullies who decided for their amusement they would have us perform various sexual acts on each other and on them. And I had never encountered such a thing. I didn't think such a thing was possible, and I didn't know how to process it, so I didn't. I just shoved the memories to the side of my mind like a bad dream and just moved on. And then my parents got divorced. I ended up in California with my father.
At what point, what age?
I was about 12 years old. And I was raped by a male babysitter.
Oh.
And again, I had no comprehension, no frame of reference. It was interesting, scary, frightening. All children, we are sexual creatures from our birth. We don't have sexual maturity or identity until we get older, but we have the emotions, the feelings, and the responses. We just don't know how to, we haven't hardwired it into our system yet. And this kind of threw a monkey wrench into the whole gear works. And then a few years later, I was molested by my mother. And I blocked everything out. I told no one. I didn't even tell myself. When the events ended, I just pushed them away from my mind, and I just tried to move on the best I could. And I started writing the book out of sheer necessity, because one day I let it out in a conversation at a Dunkin' Donuts over coffee to a friend that I had been abused as a child. This was the first time I ever spoke those words publicly.
Recently?
This is probably, finished the book in November. It took me about 4 months to write it. I've always been a writer all my life. I've loved working with words, and that was part of my heritage, and I've always wanted to be an author. I just never thought the first book I'd ever write would be about being abused as a child. It was the furthest thing from my mind. I wrote the book. I started a journal, put it this way. I started a journal to try, because when I spoke the words publicly, all the energy that I had been using and I didn't realize how significant it was, all the energy I had been keeping within me to suppress the secret, to kind of keep it silent, suddenly was unnecessary because now it was out. Once a secret is told, it is no longer a secret by definition. And a torrent of memories and emotions tore through me, and to just kind of keep track and keep my sanity, I started a journal. And the journal evolved into a book. I said, whether anybody else reads this, I need to tell this story for myself. the response I've received from readers and survivors worldwide has been, I haven't sold that many books. I don't want to make it sound like it's a bestseller. It's not. It's maybe 100, 150 books. That's on Amazon, by the way. I would love it if you buy it. But the response I got from survivors worldwide, from Australia to Great Britain and whatnot, has been overwhelmingly positive. People say the book, first, it's written by a male. Second,
right.
It's
very uncommon.
It's oddly enough, and I don't want to minimize anything, because everybody's experience with abuse is different. The experience of one is not the experience for all. I say in the book, like snowflakes in a blizzard, we're each unique, but we share a common desire to heal despite our trauma and to move on and become the best that we can be. That we share in common. What brought us to that point is different for everyone. So the story of one is not a story for all. I survived such that I did, essentially by staying as positive as I could. I was not going to, I didn't understand the psychology, the words of psychology and the dynamics, but I said, I am not going to let this thing beat me. I am going to fight back. I am going to retain my identity to the best of my ability. And I resisted to the best of my ability. I did not break, but I have to confess, I bent. And I was dented, and I would never be the same again. Looking back at it now, I can't say I would wish anything had changed, because I'm kind of happy with who I am now. And as horrific as the abuse was, it helped make me the person I am. Good, bad, and indifferent. I mean, I have ample room for improvement. Don't get me wrong. But I am essentially satisfied that I am a work in progress, moving in the direction I need to move, and I will continue to move in that direction till the day I die.
I admire
I'm never
you
going to reach it.
so much, because I'm not there yet. I'm working towards that, and I just think that's really important for everyone to understand that everyone's healing journey is different. So I just admire you for saying that.
Thank you.
Because I'm not at the point where I can say I'm glad where this stuff
I'm not
is
glad.
happening.
I accept. It's
Right.
a different. Like I went to war in Vietnam. I wasn't real happy with the government's choice of how they're going to use my time, but also I wouldn't change it even if I could, because it also helped define me. Everything that we are today, we are a creation of our history, our past, and our experiences. If you accept yourself as who you are today, you also embrace and at least acknowledge all the forces that help shape you. That doesn't mean you give them thumbs up and go, yay, yay, I don't wish it on anybody else. But I wouldn't take it away from me.
You accept that these happened, and you let yourself know, this happened to me, I'm moving on.
That was helpful, because that encapsulates forgiveness.
Yeah. And one of the things, because I don't want to take away anybody else's time, because I have a feeling I'm reaching my limit. One of the things I'd like to say is the first step, anybody out there, if you have been abused, and if you have kept it a secret and have told no one because you didn't trust anyone, find somebody to trust and tell somebody. Reach out to some of the people, because only when you have shared that secret can you truly begin to heal. Prior to that, you can probably maintain, but you won't heal.
Right.
You're constantly bailing because the flood of emotions that keep filling the bucket, and you keep bailing it out, and it may come out as drinking, it may come out as bad behavior, anger, or 1,001 ways we have to cope with negative energy. Once you acknowledge your abuse to yourself and to one other person, just one, don't have to write a book, then you'll find you have an amazing amount of energy you didn't realize that you were expending in a kind of an emotional short circuit dealing with your abuse. Now that is available to help you heal. That is the number one thing that the only advice that I can offer to anybody is find somebody, share the secret with somebody you trust, and begin, because the healing is not going to be instant. It is going to probably be a process that lasts the rest of your life.
There's going to be days.
But you're going to travel that journey in sunshine with friends as opposed to travel alone in darkness.
Definitely. I agree with that so wholeheartedly.
There
are going to be days that suck. I mean, please know that. There are going to be days that you're not going to want to get out of bed. There are going to be days where you've got to grieve the loss. You know, you have to grieve the loss of what you thought could have been, or why did people not help me? Why was I so unlovable? And it has nothing to do with you not being unlovable. It has everything to do with people who are damaged, who are in charge or around children and or adults, and then they force their damage upon you.
It's like a continuing cycle.
Right. And if it's not addressed,
generational cycle.
Exactly. It does happen again if it is not addressed. So.
One last thing, then I will, in fact, shut up. I also became mindful of time. And yesterday, we're memories. Tomorrow, we're dreams. Today is the only moment we were real, and now is the only moment we have to heal and become the person you want to be. So you have to live in the moment. You can't live in the past because you can't change it. You can't live in the future because it ain't happened yet. Now is the moment that you heal.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah, so Barbara.
Yes. Listening to both of them speak, I can agree and relate to everything that you both have said. I, like Dennis, have gotten to the point where I do accept my past, and it has made me who I am. I think I'm a more empathetic and compassionate person. I think I was able to share that with my daughters. I have daughters who are, with never being abused, are just wonderful human beings who embrace people and their differences and always want to help. Also, like Kanisha, unfortunately, I was not believed. I was the black sheep of the family. My mother still to this day doesn't believe me, feels like I tried to ruin the family. Why are you doing this? And I still struggle with the dynamics in the family because, you know, you always want your parents' approval. You always want, you know, that's the way it's supposed to be. Your parents are supposed to believe you. Your parents are supposed to protect you. And while I'm not angry that they didn't, it is frustrating that their goal is for me not to embarrass the family. Never mind, you know, that's like, even doing this, it's like, it was so funny because Sam didn't use my last name, and like I didn't even post anything about it, and I'm not ashamed at all about being here, but it's the other people that I have to deal with in my life who are going to be like, well, how dare you go on, you know, public TV, and how dare you do this? Like, oh my God, you know, I can deal with that, but it's just part of something I don't choose to deal with on a regular basis.
It's hard.
It really is. And to Dennis's point about telling someone, also in telling someone, remember to find someone who will listen. Because if the first person doesn't listen, find somebody else. You will find someone who will listen to you and who will believe you and who will essentially help you. Because the first person I told didn't believe me. And I could have given up. I could have given in, and I didn't. I don't know what I had inside of me to keep me fighting. I don't. My earliest memories are 4, and my latest memories are around 10.
When
yes, when I was 4 years
old.
I don't remember anything positive from my childhood until after I was 12. Everything that, you know, relates to my childhood before that is abuse related.
So you didn't block it out. You almost.
I did after I turned 12. After I turned 12, and I'm sure you guys understand this. Like, it's almost like it got to a point where I was watching a movie where I wasn't in my body. I was witnessing or watching what was happening, but it wasn't me. Exactly, there was a disconnect.
Did that really happen?
Exactly, it's a disconnect with your brain. It's a way to cope because you, at that age, you can't cope with what's happening to you.
It's a way to cope.
You don't have the skills. So, you know, again, I blocked it out from 12 to probably about 18. At 18, I told my then boyfriend. He didn't believe me, and he was very abusive because, you know, that's what we do. I finally, 3 years after that, left that relationship and then was fine with that. But that's when I got help. That's when I reached out, and I was fortunate to find a counselor who I hit it off with him right away. And 30 years later, we still see each other once in a while. But, like, I just feel like it's been a journey, like you said. It's never one that's going to end. And I don't feel like I live in my past. But as Dennis said, our past is who we are. So our past, good, bad, or indifferent, has made us who we are today. So even though I don't live there, I still have to deal with parts of it that are good, bad, and indifferent. And that's what I try to do. And some days are harder than others. Some days I'm just like, all right, I can do this, I can take on the world. And there are other days where, why does anyone like me? Like, I'm so ugly, I'm so stupid, I'm not good enough, you know? So I still struggle with that.
I get that. It's why you have to have good support around
And
you.
it's hard because it's like you feel like so needy and like, you know, like I hate those days. Like I absolutely hate those days. But
So you feel depressed sometimes?
I do. I mean, I am PTSD as well.
Yeah, it's
you
a
know,
natural.
it's very common among people who have been abused. I am on depression medicine. I take anxiety medicine, anxiety and panic attacks, all those fun things that come along with PTSD. But yeah, I do still struggle. I have a great core group, you know some of them, and they're wonderful people, and they're always there to try to rally, but I don't always reach out, which I'm sure you guys understand.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes when you're in the throes of it, you can't reach out.
I get that because I've been in such an isolating experience. It's my fallback.
Yeah.
So I'm easy to just stay in my own space, but it's important to have friends who will come and get you.
Exactly.
So like,
Who will call you out on it? And
yeah,
be like, yeah,
and
no,
like,
you're not,
hey,
you're not
what's
staying
going
in bed
on?
again.
What are you doing? Yes.
Exactly.
And other friends who
we're
will be-
going, you know? Exactly. And it
All
is
day.
important. And that's why the more people you tell, like you guys have said, the more people that will believe in you and will help you in your journey. Because honestly, I don't think people understand that child abuse is something that you can't do alone. You need a support system.
You do.
And my support system, and it sounds like your support system, is not necessarily family members. So you make your family, not all, like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
I
So
do.
I've made
Yep.
my family out of my friends, and they're my support system. And it's really important to do that. Don't give up. Keep finding that person. There will be someone who will believe you.
For sure.
So ways to cope, you know, reaching out to your support system.
Yes,
and
definitely.
Expression, you know, Kanisha and Dennis both write.
Yes.
And you have a counselor that you've
I
been
do.
seeing for
I started
30
painting
years.
a little bit.
Painting.
Writing is not
Yep,
one of my
these
strengths.
Well, who was the artist of these?
Sure. So Jordan Nolo was at our event on Saturday, and he did both of these right at the site.
Another great form of expression. And Jen,
definitely.
you write poetry.
I do.
You
I
also paint.
I write poetry. I paint. I perform. I do poetry slams, spoken word, and that's sort of been my go-to since I was young.
Yep.
Like a coping for...
Coping, sort of diving into and losing myself.
Keeps you sane.
But also a way of, you know, communicating later in life, you know, a reflection of who I am and what I've been through.
And so do you have a poem to read tonight?
I do. So I want to preface this by saying that, you know, I am a survivor of physical, verbal, possibly sexual abuse, and I've been, you know, doing art since I was in high school, and I paint on canvas, metal, skateboards, and you can find my work on Upside Skate Decks on Facebook, as well as 55407 Comics on Facebook. The poem that I'm going to do today is called Take Back the Night, and it's a story about three stories of abuse. So I'm going to try to gear up for that.
All right, great.
Living with her mother was practically a nightmare. Black Eyes attempted suicide, so she didn't care. Couldn't treat her the way a mother should. The daughter up and left and did what she could. Took to the streets as her only survival. Went to a shelter, and upon her arrival, she was given a room, a warm place to stay. Her mother's off the hook, and now she's labeled a runaway. Late that night, when she was lying in bed, thoughts of suicide penetrated her head. She took a razor blade and held it to her wrist. She shook with fear, but didn't persist. The very next day, she was assigned a counselor, someone she could talk to, someone to look out for her. Little did she know she'd be his next victim, another unreported crime within the system. Only 14 and out on her own, isn't streetwise, so now she's prone. Had to learn the highway about life on the street. No support from her family made her life incomplete. She turned to her counselor, her emotions pour, but more than just that occurred behind his door. She got raped that day, her life never the same. Another damn victim, that's a crying shame. Take back the night, take back the night, take back the night is a woman's chance to fight. A chance to take back the dignity she lost when he fulfilled his fantasy at her cost. In another state, at another time, Another young girl was the victim of a crime. At a local high school in Northwest D.C., 2 young men in ROTC took it upon themselves to scheme up a plan. It took them molesting a girl to make them feel like a man. It happened in the pool during class time. The teacher, with his head turned, didn't witness the crime. They lowered her to the deep end where she couldn't swim, pulled her underwater, and the scene got grim. She couldn't scream. She couldn't fight. She got real scared as her stomach grew tight with fear as they felt her up. She couldn't breathe, so they let her up. She gasped for air, and the class bell rang. They told her it was a test just to see if she could hang. Take back the night. Take back the night. Take back the night is a woman's chance to fight. A chance to take back the dignity she lost when he fulfilled his fantasy at her cost. In Boston, Mass., another untold story, another victim of rape in the same category. The woman met up with a pastime friend. Drug dealing had become his newest friend. She really didn't care. She didn't think it mattered. Little did she know that her life would soon be shattered. They spent the day together, then went back to his apartment. Across the street, at another house, she met some of his friends from the same department. Selling drugs and gang violence was her only game. By the end of the night, her life would never be the same. The woman and her friend headed back to his place. Things got sexual, but the act was mutual. About 10 minutes later, there was a knock on the door. The door busted open and the woman hit the floor. About 6 to 8 men entered the room. She was shaking with fear and her body was bare. On her hands and knees to search for something to wear. She was raped that night by him and his friends. This, my friend, is where the story ends. Take back the night. Take back the night. Take back the night is a woman's chance to fight. A chance to take back the dignity she lost when he fulfilled his fantasy at her cost.
Wow. That's really good.
Wow. I'm kind of shaken.
Yeah.
That was great, Jen.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break after Jen's fantastic poem here, and we're going to come back to the second segment of the show where we're going to talk about resources available. Hi, Sam Squalia here with Lynette and Paul of the Salvation Army. Red Kettle Auction in the Taste of Spring. Right?
Right,
That's what we're talking about now.
Right.
That's right. We're doing this for the first time. We're going to be having our event on Tuesday night, the 9th of May, and it's going to be at the Doubletree in Leominster, running from 5:30 to 8:30. And we're going to have 17 restaurants who are going to have food there for you to sample their food that they're preparing to offer what their spring selections will be. And you'll have a chance to have some really good food and a chance to get some great prizes. We're going to be doing ticket raffle, we're going to be doing silent auctions, and we're going to do some live auction items. We have ball
Just like
game
you
tickets.
do on the TV usually, but this
Yep.
year it's at the
Right.
Doubletree. It's a live auction.
Right.
And
Lots of fun.
we thought we'd step it up a little bit and get some restaurants involved, and that's really what this is all about. When we did it on the TV program, it was okay, but it was kind of getting old. We've been doing it for almost 18 years now, and we thought we wanted something new and different and fun. So we think this is going to be a lot of fun. It's a good way to spend a Tuesday evening. Most people don't have a lot of conflicts midweek, so we thought this would be a good time to do it.
Dinner. Yeah.
Yep, you get a quick meal, and let me just give you a list of some of the restaurants that are going to be there. We're going to have Applebee's, Bootleggers, Buffalo Wild Wings, the Doubletree, of course, and then Extapa. Help me this one.
George's Hot Dog
George's
Stand.
Hot Dog Stand. Thank you.
Outback.
Your glasses work good, but not as good as mine. And then we have the Outback, the Longhorn Restaurant, Tang Dynasty, Zapapas.
Zapata.
It's a new
There
one.
you
The
go.
new Mexican restaurant.
Yes.
Yep.
And Lucia's Talabiano. And let's see, we
Tang
have
Dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Vitamin Shop.
Yes. So they have some healthy food options too, which are
Nice.
very good.
So tickets are $20 in advance and $25 at the door.
That's right.
Right.
And so you can get tickets in advance the day of at Salvation Army, WS Beauty Supply.
Yeah. Some other places around town where we're still trying to get all the places lined up, but
But those are the
all in
places
all,
you
yeah,
should
the
go.
main thing,
Yeah,
the
but they
Salvation
call
Army
them.
right on Water Street, across from the radio station, is probably the easiest place for people to find, right on Route 12. So if you're traveling between Fitchburg and Leominster, it's right there.
The Salvation Army on Water Street, get your tickets in advance, they're $20, but you can still get them at the door. And that ticket gives you a tasting for all these restaurants you just mentioned.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And an opportunity to get some great items during the auction.
And what time does the auction start?
The auction will start at 6. The actual auction for for the ticket raffle and the silent auctions will be going on continuously until about 7:45. We're going to do the drawings of those winners, and then they'll be announced before people leave. And then the live auction will only run for about a half an hour. We're going to try to do the key items and do those live, so it's not a lot of auction time because that's boring for people to be sitting there. So
Sounds
we make
kinda
it
fun.
short and fun and a lot of really quick things. And actually, our auctioneer is going to be Ben Parker,
Oh,
who used to be
yes.
with the radio station locally. Now he's with WBZ in Boston.
He's great.
So he is a really
he's fun.
great guy.
Lots of fun.
So
All
fun
right.
night.
So the Taste of Spring and the Red Kettle Auction at the Doubletree in Leominster. Tickets are $20 or $25 at the door. It's from 5:30 to 8:30. Tuesday, May 9th.
That's
Correct.
right.
All right. And for more information, you can call the Salvation Army on Water Street.
Yep.
That's correct.
And you want to make sure you call the Salvation Army, not the thrift store. There's
Right.
2 different locations. We're the one by the Wachusett Potato Chip Factory. If you would like to get your tickets,
What is your phone number at the
it's
Abbey?
978-342-3300.
Very good.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks,
Great.
guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. I'm here with the Brawlin' Broads of the Bay State Brawlers. Right? We have Sting Rage, Molly Walnuts, and Rumble Brie. All right?
Thanks for having us, Sam.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So tell us about the roller derby league, the Bay State Brawlers.
Well, we're your local roller derby league. We play all of our games at the Wallace Civic Center in Fitchburg, and we have our first of the 2000 season coming up on May 6th. We're going to be hosting a doubleheader matchup against Mass Attack Roller Derby from Fairhaven, Massachusetts.
Attack?
Yeah. They're our frenemies from the other side of the state.
Frenemies. And who else?
It's going to be a doubleheader against their A team, their all-star team, playing our team, the Punishers, and then their B team, the Bloody Bordens, playing against the Broads.
The A team and the B team. So are these like the elites and the...
Yeah, our A team, the Punishers, is kind of like our varsity team. All of their games are sanctioned with WFDA, Women's Flat Track Roller Derby. Yeah. And the B team is kind of like JV. We're working our way up.
I get it. That's nice for beginners to ease into.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you guys are on the Brawlin' Broads?
We are.
Yeah, I'm actually on both teams. I'm on the A team and the B team, so I'll be playing 2 games.
Our overachiever.
And you guys are the co-captains of the Broads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, so tell us a little bit about what we as fans can expect to see during the roller derby game.
All right. When you walk in, you will get your ticket. There's beer, there's concessions, there is a bake sale, there's lots of merchandise. We highly suggest bringing a lawn chair because while we do,
That's
have
an insider tip.
Yeah, insider tip. There's bleachers, but the bleachers are behind the plastic, so it can be a little hard to really see. But if you have a lawn chair, you can sit right up close next to the action.
Kid friendly?
Super kid friendly. There is like coloring, kids activity. Kids can like run around, do whatever they want to do as long as they don't go near the track.
Yeah, when I brought my daughter, she went and she was playing with a girlfriend for like 2 hours. We had a great time.
I love it. We got a kid zone and a crash zone. So the kid zone for the kids, crash zone for the fans who really want to sit up close to the action.
So speaking of crashes, how often do you fall and get hurt?
Fall, often, get hurt, not as often. We have lots of padding, but we're usually covered in bruises and scrapes and cuts. So it's a really heavy-hitting game, lots of action, but we try to minimize the injuries. That's kind of how the sport has evolved over time. Back in the day, it was a lot of big hits, which there's still a lot of big hits, but now it's controlled, so there aren't as many injuries. So you won't see people taken out of the game for injury, but you will definitely see people get knocked around and fall down quite a bit.
Aha, that sounds like a good yelling, fan yelling,
Yeah.
oh!
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's easy to get into it. The rules aren't that complicated. You'll get a program when you come in that explains all the rules, so even if you know nothing about roller derby and you're just looking for a good, fun way to spend your afternoon, you'll be able to pick up the rules pretty quickly, and there's always a ton of derby nerds around who are more than happy to explain the rules to you.
And what are the ticket prices like?
Adult tickets are $10. Child and student tickets are $5. And you can get them in advance online so that you don't have to wait in the super long line at our website, which is www.baystatebrawlers.com. Or you can email the league at info@BayStateBrawlers and connect with a skater who can get you tickets in person.
Great. Yeah. So go to the website for more information. You also have a Facebook page to like, the Bay State Brawlers, and you get all kinds of good updates on that. And you play at the Wallace Civic Center, but you're also traveling, so you only play at the Wallace Civic Center 4 times a year?
3 times this season.
3 times this season.
So May 6th is our opener, and then we're there on July 8th, and then also August 12th.
And we'll be there for the Battle of Bunker Hill roller derby tournament on May 13th. The Punishers are playing an exhibition game as part of the tournament for the men's roller derby league, our brother league, Mass Maelstrom.
Right. And that's at Shriners Auditorium in Wilmington.
All right. Thanks so much, ladies, for coming on. Or should I say broads?
Yeah.
That works.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome back to our second half on Breakthrough Silence, a discussion on child abuse and sexual assault. So in our second half here, we're going to focus on what resources that we have available to the survivors of abuse, right? Yes. We have Allison, who works at Department of Children and Families.
Yes.
And Irene, you're an experienced foster parent.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And,
amongst other things.
Yes. And Sarah, you do a healing yoga.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a healer, so yoga is part of that, yes.
What does that mean, you're a healer?
Well, we're all called for very specific purposes in life. And our responsibility in this life is to figure out what that purpose is. And I've always been the person who stood up for other people, kind of could see through the stuff and just figure out what the problem was and say, okay, how can I help you with that? When I was younger, I worked as a CNA. I've worked for nonprofits with people who suffer from substance use disorders, and
Recovery Centers of America.
Yep, yeah, and before that, I worked for Spectrum. So I've always been involved with the healing and the health and the wellness of people, and I have had the amazing opportunity to find yoga, and yoga is a lifestyle. It's a philosophy. It's a choice. It can be the physical practice that we see on TV or in magazines, but that is not necessarily it. It's only 1/8.
Those are the motions.
Yeah, that's just the physical part. That just helps us burn the stuff we put in our body. It makes us feel good physically, and it gives us an opportunity to marry our breath and the movement of our body so our mind can let go, so that our mind can move past the ego. So when I talk about yoga as a physical practice or a philosophical practice, particularly with people who suffer from PTSD or other trauma, yoga is the experience of moving closer to yourself. And for most people, most survivors of trauma, they don't always have that immediate recall. It can take years and years for people to be able to get to the place where they feel emotionally safe to tap into those memories, into those experiences. Yoga can create a safe space for those people to look at the memories that start to kind of bubble up. And it creates space for people to look at that trauma in a very non-judgmental and very compassionate way. Yoga is really about moving closer to our most authentic self, creating a deep, intimate relationship with ourselves first. And
letting go of all the surface
stuff.
issue.
Yeah. So we have that opportunity as we start to relive, and I'm a survivor, and yoga has helped me kind of look at myself and realize it wasn't my fault, right? And it means something to be able to stand in my own power and to look at myself and look at that little girl who suffered and wrap all the love that I can wrap around her and give her space and an opportunity to step into womanhood in a healthy and productive way, so that I'm not perpetuating a cycle of violence. I'm not perpetuating the guilt and the shame.
You're not continuing it like what happens too often when people bottle up their problems.
And most often, victims of assault and sexual abuse, particularly children, become abusers themselves.
Right.
So that's trauma that they have internalized. They have made that a part of who they are, their psyche, their ego, and then they perpetuate that onto other people. And yoga is an opportunity just to step away from that stuff. How can I contribute? The question that can come up in a yoga practice is, how can I be closest to who I am authentically? And then how can I help my community? What can I give back? And we give back in ways that show an infinite source of love and compassion. And really that's yoga. And that's what yoga can mean to survivors.
That sounds like a fantastic resource for, especially for adults, right? And so when we back up from there, you work with children.
Right.
Yes.
I've seen children who have suffered abuse also use yoga, and it's a really good way for them. Maybe they don't have, like you were saying, they don't have the words to disclose their abuse, or they don't have the words to identify that they're feeling angry, or they're not feeling safe, or they're feeling scared. And I've seen them use yoga and other, martial arts and things like that to really get in tune with their body. And then once they are able to settle down a little bit and start healing and start to process the grief or the trauma that they've experienced, I've seen that working with all kids from the agency as well.
That's
kids in
great.
care. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
What other resources are available? You must experience a lot of abuse, in your line of work.
I do. So I'm a foster care recruiter currently.
A foster care recruiter.
So my job currently is to recruit people to provide care for the children that are in the Commonwealth that are in the department's custody for one reason or another. And a lot of those kids are in care because of abuse or neglect or sexual abuse. So that's the job that I'm tasked with currently. Previously, I was an adoption worker, and I did ongoing protective social work as well. So I've worked with a lot of kids who have experienced trauma, all from the lens of the department. And DCF offers a lot of services. Kids who are in care, we give mass health, we coordinate in-home services or therapeutic services as needed. And right now, the recruiting of foster parents is really crucial because we have a large influx of kids in the Commonwealth currently who are in care and are bouncing night to night because they don't have a regular, stable foster home to meet their needs and to nurture them.
So when you say bouncing, do you mean in group homes? Or
we do have kids in group homes, or we'll have kids who will go night to night from foster homes because they cannot...
There are different types of foster homes.
Yeah.
So there's adoptive foster homes, there's unrestricted foster homes, there's respite foster homes, and there's hotline foster homes. So when the children...
So the hotline must be, we need one night.
Exactly. In the middle of the night, if a kid, DCF is never closed. So if something happens at 3 a.m., we come in. If we have to remove a kid, we'll call a hotline home and say, we need you to provide care for this kid for a night. That's what the goal is for only that night.
That's how they bounce from home.
But then sometimes when we don't have a good match for them or we don't have a home that has room for them, which is what we've been running into lately, they end up kind of bouncing night to night in hotline homes, which isn't any way to grow up.
Right. So you have been a foster parent?
Yes. So I started with foster care over 15 years ago. A family member had a baby born in an elevator, born addicted to every kind of drug that you can think of, and was failure to thrive. And they would keep him in a dark room thinking that, the stimuli is too much for him, or the light, or the touch. Yeah. And so I started taking him home, and I became a Reiki master and a therapeutic touch practitioner, and I learned how to massage because of all the ailments that he had, and he was failure to thrive. So from that, you just learn how to heal. You just learn how to heal and how to just open the space for whatever it is that this child needs. So fast forward, I wound up just fostering him for a while. Then he became mine. And when he was 9, there was a sibling group who I had helped in the community, the parents. And the parents became addicted to drugs just suddenly. She was the most amazing mother and became addicted to drugs. So then the school calls me as a resource because she had no family. So then I became their foster parent. So I took all three of them. They were 11, 13, and 15.
Wow.
And there was a lot of, trauma, a lot of abuse. There was
That's
drugs.
going to be a tough situation.
It was.
Maybe even the kids themselves.
It is because, the 15-year-old had become parentified for a few years, meaning...
Parentified.
Yes. So you can explain what that means.
Okay, so parentified is kind of our jargon for a kid who's not being able to be a kid, who's often responsible for caring for their parent or caring for their younger sibling because of whatever neglect or abuse is going on in the home. We see it every single day, all day. It's one of the greatest gifts a foster parent can give a kid is their childhood back.
Yes. So what is happening is I left home when I was 14 because of many of the same reasons that our panelists have spoken about. And so I was like, well, I can take care of myself. If no one can protect me, then I can do it by myself. Yeah. Needless to say, the road was rough. Yes. Because there was nobody really in this world to protect me, except for others who prayed for me. And so then I remember as a child, I just wanted to take care of other children. And I said, I don't care about getting married. I don't care about doing anything. I just want to be a nun, and I want to open up an orphanage, and I don't care if they call me the old woman in the shoe. That's okay. But I want children to have the opportunity to be children, the opportunity to play, the opportunity to make mistakes, the opportunity to run, to bang their legs up against the system, whatever it is, or just to be a child, right? Yes, and not be in front of the TV, and not be locked up in a room, but to be a child.
And not worry about who's going to feed them dinner.
Yes, and
or if
also
there's going to be dinner,
right? And then give them structure and rules, and give them boundaries, because a lot of our children never had that. So when they come to the home, many of them are parentified. Some of them come from sexual abuse histories or just neglect, right? Failure to thrive, or physical abuse. So they all come with different things. Some of them have smeared poop on my wall, right? And he had actually had brain damage because of the abuse that he received from his father. So it wasn't so much that he was doing this intentionally or because of PTSD or anything like that. It was that we had to figure it out so that we can get the help that he needed. Right. And so a lot of times what our mantra is in our house is that every kid that comes in is treated as one of our own. Why? Because they need to feel loved, they need to feel that this space is theirs, and they need to feel like they are part of the family while they're there. And we refuse to let go of any child that's in our home. We will work through any of their issues as if they were ours. Why? Because we understand when they bounce from house to house, that attachment and the trust lessons. And then what kind of adults?
If you can't handle them, who can?
That's what we try. We just try to give as many opportunities and as much hope, through affirmations, through meditations. And the kids that have a hard time centering, we put the music on, whether it's meditation or classical or whatever it is, and we just sit there. Or we'll lay on our bellies and we'll just sit there and we'll just breathe. And that centers a kid so quickly. And it takes nothing to do.
What an amazing opportunity that you're giving to kids. How many kids have you fostered?
I think...
do we foster at one time?
So I've fostered 4 at one time.
That was your max?
What is my max? And I fostered over, I think, like 25 kids or 30 kids.
30, I was going to say.
Because I do long term. So meaning that...
So you fostered them through 18?
I have. I fostered one till she was 21. Because she didn't want to leave, because she knew that if she had left my house, she wasn't going to receive the structure to finish college. And she knew that I had an expectation of her meeting her goals. So she didn't want to go back home.
And DCF will keep kids until they're 22. If they're
22.
Yep, they can sign back on when they turn 18, and we'll help them either get a job or go to school, and we'll help pay for it. And so with Irene, when she was in a situation where she had a safe home, DCF was probably paying for her education and her books, and that was really the best case scenario for her. So we will keep kids if they're willing to do some work.
That is a great opportunity.
It really is a great opportunity. A lot of our kids don't want to take it because if you've grown up in the system, it's like what you were just saying. I can take care of myself now. Other people have been trying to take care of me and maybe only doing a mediocre job, so I'm going to take care of myself. A lot of them come back, which is great. It's wonderful when they come back because we really can offer a lot of services for adolescents.
So what about even just identifying kids in need? What if you are called to a house and you suspect abuse, but you can't prove it?
So that's a loaded question. So in Massachusetts, there's 51As, which are the chapter of the law that say that certain people are obligated to report concerns of abuse or neglect. So
mandatory reporters.
So you're obligated to report a concern.
Yep. So you're obligated. So let's say.
So you don't need proof to report.
No. So let's say Irene met a kid at the center that she works at, and the kid had been dirty for 3 days in a row, wearing the same clothes. She could call and say, "I'm concerned about his hygiene." There's no proof that anything bad is happening, but she could say, "I'm concerned." So with that, we will go into the house and try to investigate to the best of our ability. And a lot of the times we'll end up keeping a case open, especially the way the Commonwealth is right now. We've had an influx of cases, an influx of kids coming into care. So we are involved.
So a 51A is a report, and you investigate the report.
Correct.
So action might not necessarily be taken from a 51A.
Or they may. If it's an emergency, you know, I have worked with people that we've taken kids into custody because of something that was happening in that moment, and we didn't have time to investigate because the report was so significant. So it really depends on the situation.
Totally situational.
Yes.
Totally.
Not one experience is the same.
No.
Never.
And now more than ever, because of the increase of opioid abuse, because we know in the minority community, we've been dealing with burying our people for more than 4 decades. But now there's more and more people, and it's going into the service, so it's affecting different groups of people, and so now it's a crisis. And we are seeing it. And so more and more young people are in the system, and that's why we need homes. So we need unrestricted, we need adoptive, we need respite, we need hotline, so that our kids, so the reason is that our kids can stay in their backyard and in their community, because they're already traumatized by being removed. And then if we can't find a place for them, or if they're jumping from house to house, that is so traumatizing. Even for me to even think about these kids, it breaks my heart, because I just wish I could take them all. So that's why we're really exhausting our efforts, and we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah. So let's talk about how you become a foster parent, because that seems like a really crucial point to helping us change so many children's lives.
Yes, it is. So the steps to become a foster parent are a little bit lengthy. Initially, you'll inquire, so you'll talk to probably me and ask. I cover this area because I used to work in the Leominster office, so I cover the North Central area. And what happens is I'll send you out an application. When you sign your application, it says that you give me permission to run your query, essentially. So we run your query. If there's things to talk about, we'll talk about them. If it's perfect and wonderful.
Criminal offender.
Yep. So your criminal offender registry. So, you know, just if you've ever been arrested, if you've ever been involved with the department we run, all of those things. So we see the department, because we're a child protective agency, so we see everything in terms of Corey. So like recently I was working with an individual, and he said, I paid $400 to have that expunged from my record, but we still get it. So we work through those barriers. Typically they're pretty minor, and then I'll come out to your house and we'll do what's called a physical standard. So I evaluate your house to make sure that you have room and you meet DCF standards. So foster kids get 50 square feet of space for a bedroom, which is actually very small.
Enough to fit a twin bed.
Correct. And they have to have a dresser of some sort or drawers under the bed. So it's pretty small if you think about it. And if they're
a reasonable amount of space.
Right. So we measure bedrooms, we check your house, make sure things are safe, and then from
What
there,
about a bedroom with bunk beds?
Awesome.
But if you have 2 children, you have to have 100 square feet.
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
And they have to be, and then the genders play into it. So if they're bio siblings, they can share a room if they're between the ages of 4 and 8, but they have to be bio siblings. So like Irene has boys, they couldn't share a room with a girl. All sorts of things kind of play into it to make sure that everybody is going to be safe and appropriate.
Okay.
Then you take a 10-week class. So the class is called MAP. It's Massachusetts Approach to Partnership and Parenting. And it's 10 weeks, and that's where we cover everything.
And is that like a night course?
Yep, it's 6 to 9. The one up here is 6 to 9 in Leominster at the DCF office. It's a rolling class, so if your application is ready and they're in week 7, you can jump in and do weeks 7, 8, 9, 10, and then they'll pick right back up and you could do 1 through 6.
That's great.
Yes.
It's good so that we don't have to wait. Previously it wasn't, and people would be ready, and then they would have to wait 9 weeks, and that's a really long time. Once you're kind of going for it, you've already had people in your house, you've been writing statements, getting your fingerprints done, and then you're just kind of hanging out. So now we do rolling MAP. And that's where we cover why people are involved in the department, what happens to kids in care, what trauma looks like.
How to deal with kids that might have
expectations.
What are our expectations?
What are the resources? You know, who to communicate with, and who is going to be involved with that child's life while they're in your home.
Which is a lot of people.
It is. So basically, you're in a fishbowl, you know, and I would want that for myself. I know some people are like, oh, that's crazy, they're so nosy. But if you think about if you had a child and God forbid something happened to you and they're put into custody, right? And you want that person that's going to take care of your child to be a safe person.
Right.
So
we look at everything. We have to.
Yes.
May I just say, because I think that what they're doing is great, and foster parents are, I think, a beauty unto themselves. I just wanted to make sure that it's understood, though, that all, like with child abuse, even with opiate abuse, it's not just you're economically disadvantaged. It's not just people of color. It's not just a certain segment of our population, because this happens across the board.
Child abuse happens
everywhere.
All over.
Everywhere. It's all socioeconomic
And while we
boundaries.
understand that, a lot of people, they don't get that.
I completely
A lot of
agree.
people like to pigeonhole it, and they like to put it on, oh, well, it's all those ethnic people who are coming in, or it's all those people who don't have any money. But it's like, no,
Right, it's
no,
the people
no.
in the poor neighborhood.
Right, it
Completely-
happens
Completely false. I
everywhere.
agree. Right.
So what we've also done as well is that I took the MAP training as a facilitator.
With me.
So with Allison.
So we can teach.
So that we can teach and that we can do it in bilingual. Why? Because we have children that are coming from homes that are Spanish speaking. And so those homes are not available because there isn't a training that's in Spanish in this area. So I decided, to take that opportunity so that we can bring more possibilities to this community so that people can foster these children in their backyard and in their neighborhoods.
Back in the day, we used to match kids. So if a kid came into care, we would look at the kid as a person. And we would say, they're 8 years old, they like basketball, they come from a Puerto Rican household, they have just a single mom. What kind of home would they be great in? And we would go to our board and we would say, we have this single woman who speaks Spanish and has a 10-year-old son. She'll be a great match to take care of this boy. Now, we're like scrambling papers around saying, we've got 19 kids coming in today.
Who's available?
Who has a bed? Which literally happened last week in Leominster. 19 kids.
So what commitment does a foster parent have?
you take that one.
Can they go to work?
Yes.
Do they
Totally.
send kids to daycare? Do you
Yes.
get paid to send kids to daycare?
So we reimburse foster parents a certain rate a day based on the age of the child. It's not significant. It certainly doesn't begin to cover what a kid really costs, but it's a little bit. It's supposed to help with food, groceries, gas, that kind of stuff. If we can, we'll help with child care for working foster parents. Those usually get priority for child care. What else do we do? We do everything.
Oh yes. So if there's anything, there is a couple of partners that partner with DCF that if the child wants to be involved in the sport, they'll help pay the charges for whatever sport it is. They'll pay the cost for karate or for the Y or whatever it is. And so
you wouldn't expect to take on a full responsibility with all the pain, with all the costs, everything. In terms of some help.
In terms of cost, some help, and it's an investment. So and when you take a child into your house, you're pouring into the child, and so you do this because this is something that is innate. Not because of
a paycheck.
The paycheck, because it really is. It's really not a paycheck. Right. So what it is just pouring into this child. And if you need some help with some resources, they definitely try to match that. And if not, we try to remember that if this was our child, what would we do?
Right. You wouldn't.
And so
call
I
a lady.
always check in with myself, and I said, what would I do if this happened? I would do this. And that's the truth, because we cannot separate the children that are coming into our home from the way that we would treat our own. 100%. We must treat them as our own, because they heal, they become safe, and then they can start to evolve.
And how long would you expect to keep a foster child?
I've kept them, the longest was I think 4 years, because I try to keep them until they shift. And I will work.
Big on that.
I work with them because I understand that if they go from house to house, that just is devastating. That attachment and that trust and the brokenness that will create in this child when they become adults. What are we expecting from them?
Right.
So the longest I've had them, I think, was like broken people.
Exactly. We just keep going with the cycle.
And so what we try to do is whatever we can do to shift that cycle and to stop that cycle of violence and to give them hope. And while they're in the home, this is what we can do for you.
There used to be some statistics about kids in care and how long they came into care. With the opiate crisis, it has, like you were saying, it's affected everybody across the board. So all of those numbers have gone drastically up. Kids used to stay in care about 6 months.
Yep.
Now there's really no way to determine that because everything changes every day.
Right. Great. Okay, so Thank you, everyone, for coming on.
Thank you for having us.
To the show. Foster care seems to be really a good first step for everyone that's interested and has been affected by this.
But support, just basic. Yeah. Listen to survivors, just without judgment.
Support.
Listen to them.
And there's
listen,
ways to help
believe when people tell you things.
Right.
Yeah. Don't be judgmental.
Right.
No judgment.
And if you're interested in becoming a foster parent, you can contact the Leominster DCF office.
Or Fitchburg Community Connections.
Fitchburg Community Connections.
Every fourth Wednesday at 5:30 at 356 Broad Street.
We're there.
We're there.
Which is supposed to be today, but we're here instead.
Yes.
Great.
And My Care has an event coming up in October, and we have a website.
So the My Care Initiative, they've been having ongoing events on this topic. So you can go to mycareinitiative.org.
Yes.
And they also have a Facebook page, My Care Initiative. So thank you so much for joining our show.
And sorry. And